Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is TVP World. You're watching World News. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. Now, today, the eyes of the world are on the Middle East as the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is expected to come into force. However, it has yet to materialize. We'll monitor this developing story closely throughout the day. And we'll also bring you the latest from Georgia, where alarming reports suggest authorities are cracking down on protesters. Meanwhile, in the United States, the social media platform TikTok has been banned. Details coming up. First, let's take a look at the latest developments in the Middle East. The long-awaited ceasefire will not take effect until Hamas provides a list of hostages set for release. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced a delay just hours before the ceasefire deadline. Hamas representatives maintain that they are committed to the ceasefire deal, attributing the delay in providing the hostage list to technical issues. Under the agreement, 33 remaining Israeli hostages are scheduled for release today in exchange for more than 700 Palestinian prisoners. The first phase also includes the delivery of 600 humanitarian aid trucks into Gaza daily. Meanwhile, the IDF is expected to withdraw to the east, away from populated areas, to allow civilians to return to what remains of their homes. Around 90% of Gaza population, 2.3 million people, have been displaced since the conflict began. Donald Trump has arrived in the Washington area ahead of the upcoming presidential inauguration. President-elect, alongside his family, takes part in celebrations marking an eve of his presidency. Trump flew into Dulles International Airport aboard an Air Force plane sent by outgoing President Joe Biden. Trump then made his way to his golf club in Sterling, Virginia, on the outskirts of the Capitol, where he attended a pre-inaugural reception with fireworks display. Later today, Trump is due to hold a rally with supporters inside the Capital One arena in downtown Washington. Frigid weather forecast for Monday prompted Trump to move the inauguration ceremonies from the iconic west front of the U.S. Capitol building indoors to the Capitol Rotunda. TikTok has gone offline in the United States just hours before a new law banning the popular app was set to come into effect. U.S. users attempting to access the platform were greeted with a message stating that a law banning TikTok has been enacted. The message also expresses hope that President-elect Donald Trump would work to reinstate the app. This move comes after TikTok warned the Biden administration that it would go dark unless the outgoing president provided assurances that the ban would not be enforced. Trump, who has previously criticized the app due to his Chinese parent company ByteDance, stated that he would likely grant TikTok a 90-day reprieve from the ban once he assumes office. The law banning the app, passed in April, was upheld by the Supreme Court on Friday, with the deadline for ByteDance to sell the platform. Rafał Trzaskowski, Warsaw's mayor and a Civic Coalition candidate in Poland's presidential election this May, says that Poland and the EU should allocate 5% of their GDP to defense by next year. Currently leading in the polls, Trzaskowski made this statement during a speech near the Russian border.
We are on the Polish border with the Russian Federation in Goldap. Of course, we will talk about security today, because security is the most important thing. I spoke about it before at our convention in Gliwice. And that is why I am of the opinion that in 2026, Poland should spend 5% of GDP precisely on defense, on security. I believe that the entire European Union should do exactly the same. We need to raise our combat capabilities, but also our deterrence capability. Hence the East Shield project, a project of fortifications along the entire border with Russia and Belarus, 800 kilometers of fortifications.
Reports of ongoing Russian aggression continue to emerge. A French maritime aircraft patrolling the Baltic Sea was targeted, while Romania's National Security Office reported airspace violations. These incidents are intensifying calls for NATO's response.
A French maritime patrol aircraft was the subject of Russian intimidation activities, French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu has alleged. Meanwhile, Romania's National Defense Ministry reported that it has detected violations of the country's airspace during a Russian Friday morning drone attack on Ukraine.
NATO doesn't want direct confrontation with Russia amid ongoing Russian aggression against Ukraine. Russia wants to test NATO, testing NATO all the time. Putin and the Kremlin was very cautious in terms of crossing the red line.
Politicians closely watching the unfolding events are more willing to call spade a spade.
We have faced sabotage attacks all around Europe, not only in Poland, but in Germany, in France, in Spain, and we now realize that this is actually a war. We are at the state of war with Russia, carried out by different means.
The situation is particularly sensitive as those provocations come amidst NATO's latest mobilization initiative, the Baltic Sentry Safeguarding Mission of the Baltic Sea, which, as NATO's Secretary General says,
is of utmost importance. Not only is this crucial for energy supply, whether from power cables or pipelines, but more than 95% of internet traffic is secured via undersea cables.
NATO's initiative did not go unanswered by Moscow, with Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Maria Zakharova responding that NATO's safekeeping mission is used as a disguise.
The real goal of all of this is to limit the export of Russian oil by any means and at the same time try to create the preconditions for introducing arbitrary restrictions on international shipping in the Baltic Sea in light of the notorious speculation about its transformation into, as they say, a NATO internal sea.
Some experts point to the fact that Russia is still cautious in its approach to the West.
Russia understands pretty clearly that any full-scale attack on NATO will put Russia into a very unsuccessful position. That's why Russia will try to push, as long as it's possible, their sabotage actions.
However, the French government's message is clear. The situation is worse than during the Cold War.
Quite simply because we have new spaces that have become militarized, and this is largely due to digital technology.
For now, the message from NATO members is clear. These are dangerous times which require an increasingly concentrated effort. For TVP World, I'm Susanna Jurek.
Foreign residents in Poland are facing long delays in obtaining legal status. Provincial offices are overwhelmed with tens of thousands of applicants still pending.
Such messages and stories can be found in any foreign group on social media. Obtaining a residence permit is one of the biggest problems today.
It's quite a common practice, I think, that, people have issues with Karta Pobytu.
Karta Pobytu, meaning residence card in English, is the identification document a foreigner receives after being granted residence in Poland. But why does it take so long to obtain a Karta Pobytu today?
We are out of staff, and the staff available in voivodeship offices is definitely underpaid and overloaded with the amount of work they have.
Also, foreigners sometimes face strange requirements, even if they are married and have a child with a Polish citizen, which in theory should simplify the process. JT waited 1 year and 3 months for his documents.
We had to prove our relationship was indeed real, with photographs. We had an extra level of complication, which was the fact that they requested for me to show all the places, all the times that I had entered Poland.
According to experts, it was the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 that prolonged the waiting time for the residence card, which was later exacerbated by the war in Ukraine.
Actually, the first time it was introduced, it was due to COVID that the prolongation of the cases was justified legally. And in 2022, it was prolonged again and justified again due not to COVID, but this time due to the war in Ukraine.
Thanks to law on assistance for Ukrainian citizens introduced in March 2022, Ukrainians have more privileges and they can legally stay in Poland until September 2025.
There is PESEL with UKR status, right, which is quite, I believe, smooth and easy procedure. And it's not about a temporary residence permit procedure that you have to wait so many months, you have to submit fingerprints with many other documents. It's very one-day easy procedure.
According to the latest data from the Office for Foreigners, there were 510,000 applications for the residence permits in 2024. The largest number of applications came from citizens of Ukraine. Experts estimate that the average minimum waiting time for a residence card today is 8 months, and the longest can be up to 1.5 years.
As protests continue across Georgia, the government's crackdown on dissent is intensifying. Katie Shashiashvili, a senior corruption researcher at Transparency International Georgia, details the extent of state-mandated violence.
Georgian Dream is institutionalizing rule by thugs in Georgia, disregarding the rule of law, the constitution, fundamental human rights, and ethical police conduct. This should alert the West to the human rights crisis in Georgia orchestrated by Georgian Dream. In just one day in Tbilisi, several individuals were unjustly arrested or fined. The police unlawfully arrested a citizen and subjected them to physical abuse at the station. Opposition representatives were attacked by assailants armed with knives, and stones were thrown at them. 2 protesters were abducted by unidentified individuals with no police or police vehicles present at the scene. Face masks are banned under the threat of hefty fines, while individuals are attacked and abducted on the streets by government-aligned thugs. People are unlawfully arrested in public and in their homes solely for opposing the government. Georgian Dream is waging a campaign of total repression against citizens daring to voice peaceful dissent. Georgia's friends in the free and civilized world should speak up against injustice and authoritarianism in Georgia.
Now let's turn to Grzegorz Nawrocki, the host of TVP World's show Warsaw Debate. Alongside co-host Małgorzata Ponikowska, he'll examine the potential impact of a second Donald Trump presidency in the United States. This episode focuses on migration, defense spending, climate policy, and relations with allies. Grzegorz, what can you tell us about tonight's discussion?
Well, most of the world is actually waiting for what's going to happen tomorrow, perhaps even more day after tomorrow. Donald Trump is going to be sworn in as next president of the United States. What will be his first decisions? How is he going to deliver on that main promise, make America great? Again, we're going to discuss it tonight, and I'm joined now by one of our speakers, Dr. Clifford Bates, American Studies Center, Warsaw University. Welcome to the program, Dr. Bates. So, in your opinion, how is Donald Trump going to deliver on that main promise?
He's already done it. We've got a peace deal in Israel already, even before he's been president. And the mere psychological effect of him being president and the removal of Biden has already started the wheels in motion. Much of this is psychological, not real physical. The second thing he's going to be doing as president is basically unsigning and re-signing thousands of executive orders, undoing much of what Biden accomplished, and restoring many of the policies he established at the beginning. So therefore, it's already happening.
Right, are you in any way surprised by the scale of his victory?
Yes. You know why? Because I think too many factors. I mean, I'm not surprised. I thought he was going to win, but I didn't think he'd win the majority of popular vote. No Republican since Bush, and he only got that because of 9/11. So in this century, no Republican has won majority election. He did this, and therefore he has a fundamental democratic mandate.
All right, Dr. Clifford Bates, we have more on that for you. Tonight, join us at TVP World for Warsaw Debate. Back to the studio.
All right, guys, so stay tuned for Warsaw Debate tonight at 9:10 p.m. Central Eastern European Time. Now, January 19th marks the Feast of the Epiphany, a day when devout Orthodox Christians celebrate the baptism of Jesus Christ. This year, dozens of Muscovites braved freezing waters in a ritual plunge to cleanse himself of sin. According to the Orthodox Christian belief, the baptism of Christ marked the appearance of the Holy Trinity, and thus every person who participated in the ice baptism is submerged in water 3 times. Every year, some 200,000 people in Moscow and the surrounding area take part in the ritual. The Orthodox Christian Epiphany celebrations differ from the Catholic tradition, which does not involve an ice bath and take place 2 weeks earlier on January 6th. And with that, we conclude this edition of World News. However, we are still keeping a close eye on the developing situation in the Middle East. We'll see whether or not the ceasefire deal will come into fruition and how the situation unfolds. So please stay tuned to TVP World to find out more.